Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
And today we're going to talk about the banks.
Yes, the banks have recently been in the news for the wrong reasons. The Ulster Bank, which has been here for nearly 100 years or more, and in towns and towns throughout the country, they're closing all their branches. They had already closed some before, but now they're closing them all in the country, and they're part of the National Westminster Bank Group in the United Kingdom, in London. Whether that has something to do with it, whether Brexit has something to do with it, whether it's a loss of confidence in the economy of this country, it's very hard to find the real reason. The reason that they offer, one discounts that because they're using a reason for the sake of that they weren't making money. Very seldom banks don't make money, and when they don't, there's some other angle attached to it. But the fact of the matter is that the National Westminster Bank has decided to close this subsidiary bank that they have, the Ulster Bank, and pull out from the Irish Republic. As far as I know, they will be still in the north of Ireland. So there's a vote of confidence in that area as far as I'm concerned. Now, the Bank of Ireland then has joined the bandwagon of closures, and now are going to close 89 branches or thereabouts throughout the country. So towns and areas from Cork to Donegal that had banks for the customers and for lodgements and for the queries that that people have from time to time with a bank. Don't forget, for some years recently, you're not able to make a phone call to the local bank, which you could have done heretofore. Now, they say that it's something to do with the pandemic, that they're using this lockdown as an excuse to implement these draconian measures. The one thing that's obvious about it is that they have no regard for customers, number one. They have no regard for the employees that are going to be thrown on the scrap heap. When you work in a bank, and banks were a very important part of the local community, because you had bank managers and people often went to these banks for to get service and advice. It's a thing that's very scarce now. You're not able to get that advice in banks. And the Bank of Ireland particularly, you can change money there apparently. I'm not with the Bank of Ireland, but you can change money up to midday, and after that I don't think that service is available. So their services were being curtailed, and the sort of advice that people from time immemorial up until recently were able to use banks and get advice and lodge their money and etc. Now they were being encouraged every time you went into a bank to try and do it in some other method. So now the Bank of Ireland have used the excuse that most people now are using the internet. But how do we know whether they are not? Young people may very well be using it because they don't need the advice that older folk or people that were used to banks as the service that they provided. They're not used to this, using this internet and this impersonal way of doing things. You can't beat talking to a person. And now that opportunity is not there for many people in the country. And the Bank of Ireland, I think, or the Ulster Bank, have given the post office some means of addressing this business of lodgements and where people they can use the post office for some of their services. The Ulster Bank. It doesn't say anything about the Bank of Ireland, so the post offices will benefit, but they're already doing so many items that sometimes you go into a post office, you can kiss 20 minutes or half an hour goodbye because there's queues for this, that and the other. Nearly each day they're providing so many services. But that's a good thing. Now, one of the people that should benefit and they should be given more ability to deal with customers is the credit unions. They were set up along the lines of the cooperative movement, which farmers which were being deprived of a fair price for their produce joined in the cooperative movement, and it became the Irish Farmers Association or the Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association or the Small Farmers Association, because there was some years back from the so-called experts, whom we have to disregard a lot of the time, mentioned that the small farmers were a thing of the past, that you needed farmers with at least 500 acres for it to be viable. And lucky we had ministers and Minister for Agriculture that didn't implement such decisions, because small is what the way it is. And as a matter of fact, something about small businesses, a movement was started in Italy years ago to promote such a policy. And thanks for the goodness we have plenty of farmers, small farmers, because they're the bedrock of society, not the big farmers. So these were policies that have been suggested by successive governments. So banks were very important to the local economy and to the services that they provided. Now they're no longer there in many areas, and we wonder when the Allied Irish Bank is going to follow suit, because they are fairly good and they haven't implemented such drastic decisions. They did close branches, because they had one in Boyle, County Roscommon, where I grew up, and which I often used when I was in that town, that marvellous town, and it closed. It's up in the Crescent. And they were doing business, and because there was businesses in the town that used them. But they pulled out of Boyle, and that's a vote of no confidence, because Boyle is not the prosperous town it was in my young days, and even for many years. But the policies of successive governments has managed to close a lot of towns and have them sort of deserted. And so therefore we need very much a government that implements policies that benefits local communities, and particularly the fishing community. There's another thing in Donegal. I don't think there's many banks open now in Donegal, and there's great criticism of this government, of the Department of Agriculture, the way they're selling the fishing fleet down the line, and then offering boats that cost a lot of money some kind of compensation, but that doesn't compensate. They've already destroyed the agricultural economy in the country by way of the closure of sugar factories. We're dependent on sugar coming from overseas, and we don't know what way that's going to be affected by in coming years. So, and the farmers lost out there, they was growing beet, so they've taken a lot of peculiar decisions. And now they're doing the same with the fisheries, because we're in the EU, and because Britain now has its own fishing sort of limits and all the rest of it, and going to implement it. We have to take up the slack, and our own fishing fleet be decimated. So along with the banks closing, it's very hard to make out what governments in this country are actually doing to attract industry and attract banking services. People need banking services, and now they're not going to be available throughout the country in many towns and villages.
Yeah, it's rather sad. I was in a small town recently, and I hadn't been in the bank in about, I'd say 10 years, and I walked in. There's no staff now. There's all machines. Horrible.
that's a very sad thing, because you see, you'd be maybe of an age that you use the internet and you'd be fairly experienced in that. So your banks might be something that you don't need to visit, but a lot of us do need to visit banks. I certainly do, and I don't. Anytime anybody comes to sort of say you can put this here or that here, I just don't bother. I want to see the person behind the counter, because I might have a question. And this is so important that you can't underestimate the importance of the personal touch. But the people running these entities seem to be more interested in profits for shareholders and themselves than people. The fact that all these people are going to be made redundant in what would be considered a very secure job for many years is not good, because they're not now going to be able to educate their children depending on what age they are. They're going to have difficulties in their own lives, because where's the jobs to be had?
I suppose the jobs will be less, and the jobs will be different. The jobs will be in the back end systems.
Well, you see, this is something that people are going to university and hoping to improve their prospects of jobs. But where are they going to get the jobs in this country? I mean, we did ship out thousands of our best and brightest from the 50s, 60s. We never supplied enough jobs for the citizens of this country, and we had experts even that time saying that the country could only withstand about 2 million people, so as there'd be jobs for them. The rest would have to be educated for them to be able to immigrate and perhaps get jobs other than manual jobs.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole banking sector is going to change, and because of the pandemic, it's definitely going to change. For example, if you look at Permanent TSB, their head office is in St. Stephen's Green, the old St. Vincent's Hospital, and I think you have about 1,000 staff there, and now all those staff are working from home. So every floor in the building is empty, okay, and there was talk about selling the building and to allow the staff to work permanently at home. So the future of all working staff, including banking staff, is most likely that they will work at home.
Well, you see, that doesn't suit an organisation, in my view, because working, in where people are working, there's a certain sociability attached to it, generally speaking, and there's a purpose in life. But if you're doing work from home, so therefore your social context is limited. It doesn't seem to me to be a solution for people's work. It might come to pass because people now are using the internet, but it seems a very sad, isolated type of work environment and not conducive for mental and spiritual health, to my way of thinking.
Well, if you look at Dublin at the moment, right, a lot of people Monday to Friday. So what's happening is they're working at home Monday to Thursday, and then if you hop on the train is packed on the Friday. So that's the way it's working out at the moment. There's a lot of people on the train on a Friday.
And where to go?
They're going into the city, Dublin City,
for to have some entertainment or something.
No, what they're doing is they're going in on the Friday, and basically it's probably to catch up with managers and various things and have a face-to-face meetings, and then catch up with colleagues. That's their day of socialising in the company.
Oh, right.
So they're working 4 days at home, 1 day in the company. A lot of people are very happy because they don't actually have to travel.
Well, then that means then that there'll be redundancies in the travel situation vis-a-vis the public transport, because they used to be packed. Now, in the Lake of London, that'd be no bad thing, because there was too many people using the transport, and they were putting penal taxes on cars coming into the city, and punitive parking and restrictions on them. So from a congested city like London, it could be good. and you say like that they're coming in, they're just meet on a Friday to sort of show what they've done, I presume, or whatever it is, and if they've any queries perhaps, and keep up to date with what's going on. But it seems to me it's a very peculiar situation. I presume not many people, not everybody can be working from home because people often have to be in a place to make stuff.
Yeah. The other thing as well is the idea that it's going to help the environment. It's actually not going to help the environment. I'll tell you why. If people are working at home, they'll probably make 2 or 3 car trips in a day when they're at home. They go down to the shops instead of walking down to the shops. Yes. Because they're working from home. They want to be back in a hurry. So they'll pop out for 10 minutes in the car, and they might do that 2 or 3 times a day. And then when you have a lot of people working from home in a housing estate, it can actually cause suburban gridlock. So while solving the problem of traffic congestion and cleaner air in the city, it's going to cause the opposite in the suburbs.
It could happen in cities, and that's where a lot of the work is. I often wonder now in the country, I wonder maybe that won't happen so much in the country. We don't know, depending on the number of employees in an organisation and who might be on computers. It's an unknown quantity in my book. It changes the whole work practice, and so that when you go for a job, I often remember when I was going for jobs, the question that I found actually now as I'm older, I found it distasteful at the time and not necessary, but you could be asked this question: where do you think you'll be in 10 years' time? Now, did you ever hear that so ridiculous? Because nobody knows where they're going to be in 10 years' time. And but this was a question that they would answer, so that you were expected to give an answer that would suit whatever the questioner had in mind. But you don't know what the questioner had in mind when they asked a question like that. I was asked questions of that calibre. Now, I remember talking to some expert about